Dinner tomorrow. Bring $400,000. That was the first thing my son said to me after 3 years of silence. No greeting, no apology, just a demand. I read the text 3 times, thinking maybe I'd missed something, some joke, some hint of warmth, but it was just as cold the 3rd time. Below it, a smiling photo of me next to my new silver Mercedes, still in the driveway, fresh from the dealership. He hadn't called when I fell down the stairs last year and shattered my wrist. No message when I turned 65, no check-ins when I was in physical therapy for months, nothing until now. And now he wanted dinner, and nearly $500,000. I sat there in my kitchen, the overhead light casting soft shadows on the countertop. My coffee had gone cold, the same mug I'd held the morning I signed the final sale papers for the retirement account I'd built over decades. The car was a gift to myself. After years of living modestly, I allowed one indulgence. Apparently, that photo told my son I was flushed with cash. My son's name is Derek. I raised him in Omaha. I worked 2 jobs when he was in high school, and I sold the house his father left behind to pay for his college in California. He married Vanessa 2 weeks after graduation. I wasn't invited, just sent a photo from a beach in Maui. They moved to Portland. Since then, it's been strained. I always thought maybe he was finding his way, that maybe when he felt stable, he'd come back around. But this message wasn't from someone finding his way. It was from someone who thought I was still on the hook. I didn't reply. Not right away. Instead, I opened my old leather planner, the one I hadn't touched in months. I flipped to a blank page and wrote, "Dinner with Derek, 6:00 p.m., bring nothing, but be ready." I sat in my living room, phone on the coffee table, message still open. The silence after a betrayal isn't quiet. It hums. It slips into corners and lingers, pressing on the air like humidity. I'd gotten used to it over the past 3 years, but tonight it felt heavier. 3 years ago, I sold the old family house, the one with the crooked fence and peeling shutters where Derek grew up. I didn't want to keep it. Too many memories, too many cold dinners eaten alone after his father passed. I sold it, moved into a modest condo near the lake, and gave Derek and Vanessa $200,000 from the proceeds. A gift, no strings. He said it wasn't enough. Said I must have kept more, that I was hiding money, that I never really supported them. The words stung then, they still did. After that, nothing. No birthday calls, no Thanksgiving invites. Even when I sent cards, they came back unopened. The silence had started as punishment, then became routine, until the Mercedes photo. I hadn't bought the car to show off. I'd bought it because I'd never owned anything new in my life. Not a new car, not a new coat. I always made do. This one time I let myself have something untouched, and the moment I did, he called. I leaned forward and opened my laptop. The screen glowed in the dim room. I pulled up my trust documents. Everything was in my name. Retirement investments, the condo. I had no intention of changing any of that. But maybe it was time to take a harder look at what wasn't written down, at the emotional accounts I'd let overdraw too many times. I scrolled through old emails, birthday greetings, photos I'd sent of the garden, messages that were never answered. I stopped at one. "Thinking of you. Hope you're okay." He never replied. I closed the laptop, stood, and walked to the closet. I needed to find something decent to wear. Tomorrow, I was going to dinner, but I wouldn't be going as his mother. I'd be going as someone who finally saw things clearly. It wasn't just money. It was birthdays. It was the mornings I worked double shifts, the vacations I never booked, the mornings I left before sunrise, and the nights I came home too tired to eat. It was staying in a marriage that had long gone cold just to keep stability around him. I gave up so much to put him through school. My retirement plan used to be a little bookstore by the coast. Something quiet, something mine. I used to sketch the layout in a notebook. Warm lights, tall shelves, old records playing. But when Derek and Vanessa needed help with their down payment, I let that dream go. I can always build it later, I told myself. He needs this now. He'd promised to pay me back, not in money. I never asked for that. But in presence, in care, in remembering who helped him when he was too young to help himself. Instead, he made me feel like a burden. I walked to the closet and pulled down a box from the top shelf. It was heavier than I remembered. Inside were old pay stubs from the hospital, tuition receipts, loan agreements with my signature at the bottom, stacks of evidence that I had been there, over and over, when it mattered. I sat on the bed, running my hands over the faded paper. Every number told a story. That $840 check, 1 week of overnights at the ER, the $14,200 tuition payment, cashed out from my 401k. The co-signed loan, still paying it off when they stopped returning my calls. For a moment, I thought about bringing the box to dinner, setting it down between the wine glasses and the roasted lamb, asking him to read every line. But I wouldn't. This wasn't about proving anything anymore. It was about understanding exactly where I stood and deciding what to do with that understanding. I packed the box back up, slid it into the closet, and reached for my handbag. There was something I needed to pick up from my lawyer's office before heading to the restaurant. I called Nadine Rowe just after sunset. She was the kind of lawyer who didn't waste words, and I liked that about her. Years ago, she'd helped me draft my original will, back when I still imagined holiday dinners with grandkids and a son who'd call just to ask how I was. "I want to disinherit my son," I said. There was silence. Then, "Let's meet at 8. Bring everything." The next morning, I arrived with a folder thick with paper, bank statements, the deed to my house, the trust documents, and a letter I had written to Derek the year he stopped speaking to me. I never sent it, but I kept it. A part of me had hoped someday he'd come back on his own. Nadine didn't rush. She read the letter twice. "He may contest this if he finds out," she finally said. "Then we need to make it airtight." Her fingers flew across the keyboard. We drafted a new will that morning. No vague instructions, no loopholes, every sentence precise. The bulk of my estate, house, investments, pension, would go to the Oregon Teachers Relief Fund. A smaller portion was set aside for an old friend who'd nursed me through pneumonia 2 winters ago. Nothing for Derek. Nothing for Vanessa. "This isn't revenge," I told Nadine, watching her type. "I'm just done." "I know," she said without looking up, "but we're still going to protect it like it is." We added a no contest clause. We included documentation of my decision-making process. When she slid the draft toward me for review, it felt less like a punishment and more like a boundary, one that should have been drawn long ago. It was strange how calm I felt. After 3 years of silence, I had my answer, not the one I wanted, but the one I needed. The will was only the first step. That same morning, Nadine and I finalized the paperwork for something stronger, an irrevocable trust. I shifted $500,000 into it, earmarked for teacher grants and emergency relief for retired educators. I asked Nadine to make it immediate. I didn't want that money sitting around waiting to be fought over. I wanted it working now. "Once it's in the trust, it's out of your estate," Nadine reminded me. "They can't touch it, even if they contest the will." "Good," I said. "Then let them fight over what isn't there." The documents were long and precise. Every clause cemented the decision. My signature landed on every page with a kind of steady relief. By 3 p.m., everything was official, notarized, witnessed, legal, done. I requested 3 certified copies. 3? Nadine looked up. "1 for court in case they try something later," I said. "1 for my records." She waited. "And the 3rd? "1 for dinner." There was a pause, then. "You're taking a legal document to dinner?" "Better than a check." Her brow arched. "You really want to show it to him?" "I want him to understand what that text cost him." She didn't argue, just nodded, pulled out a folder, and slid the 3rd copy inside. I didn't feel triumphant, just clear, like I'd cleaned out a room that had been gathering dust for years. I walked to my car slowly, the envelope under my arm. It wasn't heavy, but it carried weight. At home, I placed it on the kitchen counter and poured myself a glass of water. My hands weren't shaking anymore. Dinner was still 2 hours away. I packed the envelope carefully into my handbag, added a napkin-wrapped stack of receipts. I'd found student loan payments, bank transfers, the last check I wrote to cover their roof repairs. Then I changed clothes, something simple, neat. No jewelry, no perfume, just me and the truth I was bringing with me. By 5:30, I was in the car, keys in hand. The Mercedes gleamed in the driveway, catching the last of the light. Their house smelled of takeout, some sort of roasted chicken and boxed greens plated neatly to look homemade. Vanessa opened the door like nothing had happened, smiling too wide, her silk blouse catching the light as she leaned in with a kiss on the cheek. "Wine?" she offered, already uncorking the bottle before I could respond. I nodded politely and stepped inside. Derek met me at the dining room table. He pulled out my chair with practiced charm. "Mom," he said, flashing that same boyish smile he used when asking for extra allowance. "I'm glad you came." Not a word about the years gone silent. Not a word about the birthday cards returned unopened or the calls never answered. Just that smile. just a glass of wine and a script rehearsed too well. Dinner began with surface talk, weather, traffic, how busy life had been. Then it shifted. "We've been looking into a new opportunity," Derek said between bites. "Just a small real estate thing. A couple of properties outside Eugene." Vanessa nodded. "Short-term rental market is huge right now." "It would only take a little help up front," Derek added. "Just a bridge loan." I said nothing. Just smiled like they'd taught me to in church growing up. Polite, unreadable, firm. Halfway through the meal, I reached for my bag. Quietly, without breaking the rhythm of their pitch, I pulled out the sealed envelope and laid it on the table. "What's this?" Vanessa asked. "Read it." She opened it first. Her face changed almost instantly, frozen in a half-smile that didn't know whether to stay or drop. Derek read slower, his hands tightening at the edges of the paper. "You disinherited me," he said finally, voice tight. I folded my napkin. "You sold me for $400,000, I said. "I just confirmed the price." He opened his mouth, but no words came. Vanessa reached for the wine. I stood gathering my purse. "You invited me to dinner," I said. "So I brought something you could digest." I turned toward the hallway as Derek pushed back his chair. Behind me, his voice cracked into something sharper. The next morning, my phone lit up like it hadn't in years. Voicemails, texts, emails, all from Derek and Vanessa. Some were furious. "You had no right. We're your family." Others tried guilt. "This isn't like you. What happened to the woman who raised me?" Then came the threats. "You're not well. This is elder abuse by yourself. We'll fight this." I didn't reply. I forwarded everything to Nadine. She called later that evening. "They've retained a firm," she said. "They're claiming mental decline, that you're not of sound mind." I didn't flinch. "I'm ready. Schedule the evaluations." She did. The following week, I went through a full battery of cognitive assessments, memory tests, logic exams. I answered every question without hesitation. The psychologist asked if I felt manipulated or confused. I said no, I felt awake. Then came the physicals: blood work, motor response, reflexes. Every result came back clean. I'd never been more prepared for anything. They sent over affidavit testimonies from neighbors, my doctor, even Nadine herself, all stating I was sharp, competent, and in full control of my affairs. The weight I had carried for years, that maybe I was the problem, that maybe I had misunderstood, lifted with every signature, every seal of approval. I wasn't losing my mind, I was finally using it. What struck me most was how quickly Derek and Vanessa pivoted from charm to accusation. The moment money was off the table, I became disposable, unstable, a liability to contain. But I wasn't the one who changed. I filed every document into a fresh folder, labeled it in thick black ink, proof of intention. Nadine told me we'd done everything right. "If they push this further," she said, "they'll lose." That night, I slept with the window cracked open. The autumn air was crisp. I dreamt of a long hallway with locked doors, and me holding every key. They wanted to meet again, this time just to talk. Vanessa's email was warm, rehearsed, too careful with punctuation to be sincere. "We miss you," it said. "We made mistakes. Can we meet somewhere neutral?" I chose a cafe downtown, one with wide windows and crowded tables. No scenes, no privacy for manipulation. When I arrived, they were already seated side by side. Derek rose to hug me, and for a second I almost let him. Then I caught the way Vanessa's eyes flicked to my handbag, the same quick calculation as before. "Mom," he said, voice soft. "We were under a lot of pressure. Things got messy." Vanessa nodded. "We shouldn't have said those things. We just want our family back." I smiled, polite and small, and set my bag beside me. My phone was already recording, screen dark, microphone open. They talked about family, forgiveness, moving forward. Then, almost seamlessly, the words shifted. "I know the will thing got blown out of proportion," Derek said. "If we could just get a little help right now, it would take the pressure off everyone." "How much is a little?" I asked. He hesitated, glanced at Vanessa. "Maybe start with $10,000 a month," he said slowly. "Just until the house sells." "You know how tight things are," Vanessa added. "We'd be able to visit more, take you out sometimes." There it was, the price of affection. I nodded as if considering, though my heart sank further with each word. Every promise had a $sign attached. Every "we miss you" came with an invoice. The recorder caught it all, their tone, the pauses, the eagerness when they thought I might agree. When the check arrived, Derek reached for it with a confident smile. "I've got this," he said. "We'll talk again soon, okay?" I paid in cash before he could stop me. They left first, still talking about plans and timelines, certain they'd done enough. I sat for a while longer, staring at the untouched coffee between my hands before slipping my phone from my coat pocket. The recording was perfect. The mediation was scheduled for a Wednesday morning. Neutral ground, formal setting, nothing dramatic, just a quiet room with 3 chairs too close together and a table that held more resentment than paperwork. Nadine sat beside me, calm and unreadable. Across from us were Derek, Vanessa, and a lawyer I'd never met. Young, polished, nervous. It started predictably. Their lawyer laid out vague claims of mental instability, hinted at undue influence, and suggested my recent behavioral shifts warranted concern. Then Nadine pressed play. The recording filled the room with too much honesty. Vanessa's voice was clear, her promises lined with conditions. Derek's request, $10,000 a month until the house sells, landed like a stone in still water. Every word was measured, calculating, rehearsed, the lawyer's face drained of color. This recording is time-stamped, location verified, and was obtained legally in a public setting, Nadine said. It demonstrates motive, coercion, and exploitation of a vulnerable relationship. The mediator looked at them. No one spoke. Nadine slid a folder across the table. My medical evaluations, signed affidavits, clean results. She is of sound mind, Nadine said, and this process is over. Derek's lawyer leaned in and whispered something. Whatever it was, it made him stiffen. Vanessa crossed her arms. "We're withdrawing our challenge," the lawyer finally said. That was it. No apology, no admission, just retreat. Outside the courthouse, I didn't expect a word. I would have preferred silence. But Vanessa turned as I walked past. "You'll die alone," she said, voice sharp and brittle. I stopped, looked at her, really looked. "I've lived alone for years," I said, "but I've never felt freer." Her face tightened, like she might spit. She didn't. Derek didn't say a word. He didn't meet my eyes, just walked toward the car, the heels of his shoes tapping a hollow rhythm against the concrete. I watched them go. There was no joy in the moment, no triumph, just the kind of ending that doesn't need applause, only distance. When I reached my car, I took a breath, a long, steady one. Then I turned the engine and drove home, where the quiet finally belonged to me. Weeks passed without incident. The house felt different now, not empty, but settled. The air seemed lighter. I spent most mornings in the backyard, pulling weeds that had been left too long and turning the soil along the narrow edge of the fence. I planted thyme and sage, not for cooking, just for the calm their shapes brought. I hung new wind chimes on the back porch, letting them speak when I didn't feel like filling the silence. There were no more texts, no voicemails layered in guilt, no threats in the form of legal jargon. The noise had stopped, and what remained was quiet. Not the kind that isolates, but the kind that soothes. One afternoon, I found a letter in the mailbox with a seal I didn't recognize. Inside, the Oregon Teachers Fund had sent a note on heavy cardstock. "Your gift," it read, "saved our counseling program for the year. We're keeping families together because of you." I held the paper for a long time. Then I walked it into the hallway and slipped it into a frame that once held a photo of Derek as a child. The photo went into a drawer. I didn't cry. I didn't celebrate either. I just stood there still, feeling something close to peace. That weekend, I sat on the porch with a cup of warm tea. The wind moved gently through the trees, rustling the chimes, their sound soft and aimless. My phone rang, an unknown number. I let it ring, let it go to voicemail. I didn't flinch. I didn't need to know who it was. If it was important, they'd try again. If it wasn't, they'd disappear, like so many others had. Inside, the dishwasher hummed. The house smelled of lemon balm and fresh soil. I walked back out to the garden and watched the breeze move through the herbs I'd planted. I didn't speak. There was no one to perform for, no one to chase. Just air, just ground, just me, and the quiet I'd finally earned.